Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Trichotillomania Bootcamp, your step-by-step guide to freedom from hair pulling. I am your trick coach, Dr. Harrell, and this is our second episode. And in this episode, we'll spend some time describing the problem of hair pulling, trichotillomania. Now, the reason I'm spending a full episode on the problem is it's important for us to understand the problem to devise an effective solution. So from previous episode, you probably heard me say, I have a 30 years of personal experience, personal struggle dealing with hair pulling. And actually it took me 30 years to come up with a formula that works, a formula that can be applied to reach a sustainable remission. Now, the issue with the hair pulling, with trichotillomania, is that the condition itself is difficult to explain. I was not able to explain to myself, especially in the beginning, of why I was pulling my hair, why I was pulling out my eyelashes and eyebrows. And if I couldn't explain it to myself, I definitely couldn't explain it to anybody else. So there was this aspect of isolation and shame that came with it. So it was really important for me to understand the problem, understand what trichotillomania is, or what are the core characteristics of the issue, for me to be able to come up with the formula, with the solution, with the recipe that works. So let's spend a few minutes talking about the problem of trichotillomania. The problem itself has three parts. So hair pulling problem has three elements to it. There is the biological predisposition, there is the stress or trauma, and there's actually the habit. So biology, stress, and habit, three, right? So let's talk about the biology. There is enough scientific evidence that we have a biological or genetic predisposition to develop trichotillomania or hair pulling. Now, the predisposition doesn't mean we're actually going to develop it. It means that we have a propensity to do so. And what we need to develop this condition is a trigger. And what usually the trigger is, what usually triggers the hair pulling, the trichotillomania, the onset of it, is either trauma or significant stress. Right? So what the time frame in which it usually happens is between preteens to early teens. So for me, it happens at the age of 14. I know of other people that develop the condition age of 10 or 12. So this is the age ranges where usually you will see the onset of hair pulling. Now, for me, the trauma that triggered the hair pulling was my family's immigration from Soviet Union to Israel. Now, Israel was a very different culture, completely new and different language. I was kind of thrown into junior high with no ability to navigate that new society, new culture. So that was very stressful. And of course, if you add to it the financial stress of immigration and other things that came with it, that was kind of the perfect storm. So that was traumatic enough to trigger my own biology, my own predisposition, and for me to start pulling my own hair. And specifically for me, it was my eyebrows and eyelashes. So the biology plus the stress to kind of create the onset of the condition. And then eventually the hair pulling behavior becomes a habit. So these are the three pieces that constitute the problem of trichotillomania: the biology, the stress, and the habit. Now, and I think the important question here is how a stress response of hair pulling becomes a habit, right? Because anybody who has a hair pulling condition knows that although in the beginning we might have pulled because we were stressed or because of the anxiety, eventually we pull out our hair anytime. When we are bored, when we are excited, when we are reading, when we are studying, when we are just doing nothing, when we are in the restroom, that doesn't really matter. Different emotional states and mindsets create the behavior. So at that point, the behavior became a habit. So how this initial stress response of hair pulling becomes a habit. And again, the habit has three pillars. So if the problem has three components of biology, stress, and habit, the habit has also three components to it of positive reinforcement, positive feedback loop, and the element of trance. So let's talk about these three pieces that constitute a habit. So a positive reinforcement, right? So when we do a behavior that makes us feel good, we are more likely to do this behavior again. So in the context of pulling, the pulling behavior is soothing, right? The one component of it is that it is soothing. It alleviates the stress and anxiety, and in this way, it is self-reinforcing. So when we feel stressed and anxious, and we pull our hair, and we notice reduction in the stress and anxiety, we are more likely to pull our hair again when we feel stressed or anxious, right? So the positive reinforcement is one piece of the habit. The second piece is the positive feedback loop. And the positive feedback loops means the more we do A, the more B happens. The more we do, the more. So this is the positive feedback loop. Now, in this regard is when we feel stressed and we engage in pulling behavior to self-soothe, the fact that we pull our hair again is as in of itself stressful and frustrating, right? So once we realize that we are pulling again, and we're pulling out our lashes, our eyebrows, our scalp hair, whatever we are pulling, that as in of itself is frustrating and painful. There's a psychological suffering that comes with it. So it creates more stress. So the pulling creates more stress. The more we stress, the more we are prone to pull, etc. So the pulling as in of itself has a positive feedback loop of the more we pull, the more we feel stressed, the more we pull, the more we feel stressed. So this is the positive feedback loop of the habit, right? The second part of the habit. The third piece of the habit is the trance of the trichotillomania. So, and this is something that I actually didn't think about until I read about it and noticed it within my own behavior. So when we get into that space of pulling our hair, that we kind of go inward. Our attention moves from our outer world into the inner world, and we kind of zone out. We move into that weird zone, right? This kind of trance-like state in which it's self-soothing, and in a way our behavior is almost automatic. We kind of pull on autopilot, right? We pull and pull until we catch ourselves. So these three pieces together create quite formidable habits of hair pulling. So we talk about positive reinforcement, positive feedback loop, and the trance of Trich. Now, I know I use the word habit. I don't know if it's the right and the best word to use, because it's not really like any other habit, right? It's not like, setting your phone on the right side of your desk. This is not that kind of habit. But I use it for us to kind of have a language that is easy. And in terms of the kind of behavior, I found the best analogy to trichotillomania is actually addiction. And by no means I want to use addiction as in terms of that hair pulling is kind of an addiction. It's not. It's completely different behavior. But the model of recovery from trichotillomania is very similar to, in many ways, to the model of recovery from substance abuse, right? So, and one of the main pieces we talked about last time is that we are talking about remission first. We're not talking about recovery until much later. And this is kind of similar to substance abuse, right? If we stop using substance, it doesn't mean we are recovered. It means we are clean for the moment, but it does not mean we are already done and recovered from our addiction, right? So these are two different pieces. So we'll talk more about it, but I want to spend today talking about the multiple layers of trichotillomania and break it down into small pieces so we can actually talk about the solution in the same way, to provide you the recipe to create your own remission. So our destination is always freedom from hair pulling. I want to empower you guys. If you like this video, like, subscribe, hit the bell button so you'll be notified about the next video, share with people who might benefit from it, and comment in the comment section so I'll know how to improve the channel, how to provide more valuable information, and how are we doing. I want it to be, for it to be a more collaborative experience. So help me make this channel into the best tool for us to help as many people as we can. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys in a week.